This is Caleb Wilson. He's still Elder Wilson as of this recording. He hasn't been released quite yet. He's just returned from the Japan Toyko South Mission, I think is the right way to say it. And he got home late last night, and we're excited to have him join us. His family moved into my neighborhood shortly after he left on his mission, so I'm actually getting to meet him for the very first time. So thank you, Elder Wilson, and welcome to the call.
Thank you.
So we've just been asking the other missionaries about their missions. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a missionary in Toyko South.
Okay. It's like really fun. You're in like the biggest city in Japan, maybe like one of the biggest cities in Asia. There's millions of people that live in Tokyo, probably like 40 million people that live in like Tokyo. It's not prefecture, but like the metropolis. I don't know. It's like a pretty big area. Everything is really narrow and like small. Like I was looking at the roads in Cedar Hills, and I was like, we could have like 3 Japanese roads like in this one road. The cars are smaller too. What is it like? It's we go around a lot on the street and talk to people. That's like the preferred way to kill time when you don't have anything else to do, is just go out on the street. It's really fun.
Did you find that people were willing to talk to you on the street?
It's like it's like a mixed bag. There are definitely people who will not like talk to you, and people that will walk to the other side of the street to like avoid talking to you. But there, especially like young people, and like I don't know, if you're friendly, like people will talk to you. Some people will look at your name tag and then like not talk to you, but there are you can have lots of good conversations, and it definitely depends on how you approach people, and like yeah.
Were they often surprised when you could speak Japanese to them? Or not so much?
They were surprised only when I started in English and then we switched to Japanese. Because sometimes if you start in English, then they assume that you don't speak Japanese.
Oh, you kind of reel them in that way.
Yeah, we actually use a surprising amount of English in Tokyo, because like a lot of people are more willing to stop if you talk to them in English.
Huh.
Especially like for young people. In my last area, there were a bunch of colleges, and so like 90% of the time we would use English to stop people and talk to them.
Yeah, they probably thought it was a good chance to practice, and then you switch over. And how long did it take you to feel confident in Japanese?
I feel like I got more confident earlier than a lot of other missionaries because I had already studied it before. I saved like maybe I was like 4 transfers in when I was better at it than my companion. But then I was kind of humbled after that because I had Japanese companions, and I was like, I still don't know what is going on. So it's kind of a mixed bag.
So 4 transfers would have been what, 6 or 8 months?
Yeah, around that time.
Which is probably pretty fast for Japanese, and that's one of the more tricky languages to learn, I would think.
Mm-hmm. It also depends on like what scenario you're talking about. Like you can get pretty comfortable doing small talk pretty early on, but there's things that like you probably wouldn't feel confident in without a lot of practice. So.
Yeah. How was the work in Japan as far as teaching lessons, and how often did you teach? And tell us about the missionary aspects of being in Japan.
I felt like we taught pretty well when I was there. We had a lot of teaching. It really kind of depends on where you are. There are some areas in Tokyo that are just harder to find people and harder to teach. But I felt like I got in a good balance. it's definitely like it's definitely harder, I think, to get people to like progress all the way to baptism. But I saw several baptisms on my mission, and I got to baptize one person that like actually performed the ordinance. So it's not like we don't baptize, but it
Yeah.
might not be as miraculous as like some other areas in the world. Um,
Comparison's probably not really fair, but tell us about the person you got to baptize. Like, what was their story to conversion?
it was really cool because most people you do not find knocking on doors, but we do knock on a lot of doors. And so it was just, we were in daily planning with my companion, and I was like, I want to go here. And he's like, I want to go housing. That's what we call it. I think other places they call it tracting. We have a bunch of words that we just use in
Yeah.
Tokyo. We have like our own set of lingo. And so we went, and like on the way to the place I wanted to go, I was like, oh, this place looks good. And so we like stopped at the 7-Eleven. There's 7-Elevens like everywhere, like every block pretty much. And we just parked our bikes, and I followed my companion where he wanted to go. And like we didn't, it was like one of the last houses that we knocked on, we were actually knocking on apartments. So you just go across. There's a lot of apartments in Japan. And we met like this father, and he was like wondering what we were doing out in like the cold middle of the night, like trying to talk to people. And so he agreed to like meet us again, and his name was Sasami, brother Sasami. And we just kept on going back. There was a time that we were planning what to teach, and I was like, I want to invite him to be baptized. I think it was probably the second lesson, because like we had Elder Yamashita of the 70 had kind of come and kind of invited people to be like, don't be afraid of this. Like, just invite people. I was like, he's probably going to say no, but then we'll know like what we need to do. And like we invited him to be baptized. He just said yes. And we were like, what do we do now? Yeah, I had never like, my first area, I had like walked in on a baptism. Like I met the guy at his baptismal interview. And so I didn't really know too much, but we made like a plan for him, and we had some like, everyone has trouble, like everyone runs into things that they're not expecting, but
Right.
he got baptized, and now from what I've heard, he's still active in that area in Yokohama.
Cool. So you said he was the father of the family?
Yeah, and so his wife really helped out with the word of wisdom. She's like, I love this, like.
No more sake for you, buddy.
Yeah, she was originally like, she was a little like freaked out when he's like, yeah, I want to be baptized. She's like, you got to go to like this mental clinic, but he still got baptized. So.
Did she participate in the discussions too, or come to church with him, or what happened to her?
No, she wasn't like, I met her like a little bit, but we were definitely mostly focusing on him. And she was like busy with work, and we would go over in the afternoons. So
Okay.
I don't know.
So
I
you're
hope
hoping
at some point.
they can get to the temple then.
But he was definitely more open to our message. Um,
That's cool.
yeah.
So you were telling me before we started that you've served about 22 months of your 24 months, and you got, what's the right word here? You were told you had to come home early because of the global pandemic. So tell us about what that was like the last while being a missionary with that happening, because Asia was obviously where it started from, and you probably felt the effects a lot sooner than we did here. So tell us about how that impacted missionary life, and then tell us how your story about coming home as far as how you got here.
Okay. So I guess I'll begin with probably around like close to 4 weeks ago, a little over 4 weeks ago from today. Our mission was put into self-isolation, which means we could not talk to people on the streets anymore. We could not. We could only leave our apartment for like a 30-minute walk, and to go to the church for Wi-Fi. And I think they were thinking that we would spend most of our time in the apartment, but we spent most of our time in the church because like Wi-Fi was the only thing that we could do to do missionary work, is just talk to people online. And so that was like tough, and we were like, how are we going to find new people to teach? But I think we saw a lot of miracles. I like reached out to some friends back at home, and I was able to teach one of my friends one time. And I'm sure if I was still there, I'd probably be able to teach him more. I'm going to keep working with him. But it was really good. And I was a zone leader, so we were kind of looking at the stats, and we were hoping that people could keep on finding, even while all you could do is to go through area book, call every number in area book, or like, we teach Akawa, which is like free English. And so we'd talk to those students about like, hey, do you want to learn some English and some like stuff about Jesus Christ, like one-on-one? And so, well, I guess 2-on-1. So we were able to find people that way. And actually the first couple of weeks we did, we found like pretty much the same as we were finding on average like the previous transfer. And so while we were out on the street, so it was really miraculous. And then it kind of like, it slowed down a little bit after that, but it was really amazing that we were in self-isolation for 3.5 weeks before they were like, you're going home. And we would have stayed probably until, I don't know how long, but if the travel restrictions weren't like a big deal, I think we'd still be in Japan, because the situation was really stable. And so
that's really interesting that the work didn't slow down or suffer just because your situation changed. Like, that's really cool to hear that you were able to find the same kind of amount of people and keep the work going. Like, that's not a story I've heard so far in my other missionary calls, which I don't think it means it's not true. They haven't brought it up, but that's really cool to understand that.
Yeah, and I think we are also just like, we're not going to stop. Like,
Yeah,
we really wanted, and so our zone was doing really well.
that's awesome.
All of them. Yeah.
So tell us your story about how you got out of Japan.
So like on Tuesday, we got a line message from, so everyone in Japan uses like Line is what we use instead of like Facebook. We also have Facebook, but like 90% of the time when we got someone's contact information on the street, we would swap like Line. So we got a message, and he told us to go to Kichijoji, which is like the mission home. So everyone packs up. Some people took like several hours to get there by train. We got there in like 30 minutes once we left by train. And then like not a lot of missionaries got sent home that day. They were like scrambling to put itineraries together. And some people like didn't have enough time to like make the bus to get it to the airport. So it'd be rescheduled. So only about like 15 missionaries left. And I think we had around like 120 missionaries in our mission, and about like 20 Japanese missionaries. So the Japanese missionaries are still in Japan taking over the work, but most of us were going home. So that night, he sent out the office elders to go get us a bunch of Indo curry. And then we went to the mission home, and he showed us Totoro, which is kind of an interesting thing. He showed us that in Japanese, and I was able to understand a lot of Japanese, so it was fun. And then when we got to the Narita airport, it was like there was like no one there. It was just like us, and so it was like crazy to see like an airport that used to be really busy. It was just like us, and it was like less busy than Dallas when we landed in Dallas. So the Japanese people are doing really well at like isolation and quarantine.
And you said earlier that you met up with other missionaries from other missions at the airport, and then a bunch of you flew home together. Is that right?
Yeah, that's just like kind of how it worked out. Was there were some missionaries from Sapporo, and once we got to Dallas, there were some missionaries who were headed towards to go home to Utah that we met too.
And were you one of the first missionaries to leave your mission, or were you one of the last?
Well, I didn't get out early like on Tuesday or Monday, but I think most of us all left around the same time. So I
Oh,
don't
okay.
think I'm like the first or the last, like kind of in the middle
You're kind of in the middle.
with the
All
big
right.
group that just goes home to Utah. So
Well, I know there's lots of things changing really rapidly, and we're definitely in a time of uncertainty. Um, but I'm sure the neighborhood folks will enjoy getting to know you a little bit through this video, um, and we're just glad to have you back and welcome you with open arms.